Hello, everyone. Welcome to DADennial. Today, our guest is Jason Frishman. He's a licensed psychologist and a men's coach for fathers. Without further ado, Jason, how are we doing today?
Oh, I'm excellent. I'm really glad to be talking with you. And it's been a long morning already. So this has been one of the hours I'm looking forward to today.
Is it you were up in Vermont, correct?
Yes. So we were up getting the fire started in our wood stove early because we had a good frost, and we are in the midst of the post-fall beauty here. Yeah, lots of good things up here now. Where are you looking at? Forget.
I am currently in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
I did grow up in Connecticut and spent a lot of time in Massachusetts, so I'm familiar with that change of fall into should we put on the heat? Should we put on a fire at that time of year? When you were doing that, I was deciding to clean the kitchen stove, and it became like a blazing inferno pretty much. So, that was my own fire I was putting out. These are dadding moments that we get to share. Yesterday's was for the inside here of we were supposed to do it yesterday, but I got a call that my child was sick in school, so I get the first call on running out and getting the doctor's appointment and doing everything else. And so yeah, it's to your point, I'm enjoying this hour to just discuss our none worse for the wears, so to speak here.
Absolutely.
So how long have you been doing psychology specifically with men and fatherhood?
So I would say I started my career primarily working with boys and families, and then around when my first son was born, I made an intentional switch to kind of save my kid energy for our family friends and my kids and things like that. And so I started working with older men, and fairly quickly moved to really, I love working with men's issues, and fatherhood was a natural thing. I think it was really fun to work with fathers because I used to joke like I can sort of help two generations for the price of one, and the things that open up for a man when they become fathers I think is fairly unique and really interesting. So I've been doing it dedicated work with fathers for about 16 17 years.
Yeah, I agree with that switch. I feel like that was my first kid too. I was working a lot with families and kids, and then saving your energy for the home battles. What I'm curious. So I know for myself, of the thing I kind of go to is the atmosphere in the world we live in has changed so much. Where like to go to a father, whether my father or whoever, there's just no relatability, right? Of like what a father is nowadays, and how to manage social media, to manage all these different factors and things that are coming about, and how we want to engage more in our families was a big turning point for me. I was curious for you, if did you see that as well, or is that something that you're experiencing and working with dads, of this shift of this 21st century world of being a dad is so much different?
Absolutely. I think it's different, but it's so different on lots of different ways based on the context, or, for me, I grew up, my dad was a social worker and worked at a school. So he was home. We had family meals. It was pretty lovely. But at the same time, he didn't say I love you very often. And it was, so there's this multiple generational changes. But you're right. Social media and the world that our kids are growing up in today is radically different than ours. I sometimes try not to get caught up in that because I imagine that the world that I grew up is very different than my father, than the world he grew up in. And so I think that kind of happens. The challenge is, how do we meet our kids? At least for me, one of my challenges has been, how do I meet my kids where they are? And also, help support dads to find that as well. I'm not going to remember the exact statistic, but it's a high one. But one of the nice things is, statistically, men and fathers are more interested and are spending more time at home than they have in a long time, in many generations. I think the problem is that there is not as significant a change in the social teachings and, how we are, what the story and narrative of what fatherhood is. So I'm spending more time at home but I'm not learning things differently, which means I have that same percentage of possibilities to kind of make more mistakes or to, like I had one kid that I worked with who said, I wish my dad wasn't as home as much because he doesn't know what we're doing at home.
What do you mean by that? Like what they're doing in terms of what they like or about them, or what do you think that?
Well, I think this particular one, the mom was a stay-at-home mom, and basically the kid was telling me like he doesn't know any of our routines. He doesn't know it. He doesn't, he comes in and inserts himself. And then, we're expected to fall in line and to be happy that he's home, but he's not really taking the time to know what we're doing and know how we are. And so there's a weird conflict there, I think.
I think that's a great point. And that's kind of where my mind or my heart was of, it's that shift of that there's that surface level stuff of the social media. And yeah, even I joke about sometimes of, I remember when, my dad and mom would say if I was playing Nintendo that your brain's gonna rot and it's gonna, you play too much Nintendo. Now if I'm seeing, colleges build $1 million esports arenas and, this is a way to pay for life. So it's like, that shift has happened in that realm is different. But I think more of what you're saying, I've always kind of found that post, and not to get political here, but the post Me Too world, right? Of like, when we know like what a bad guy is, we know, how to shift of this is not acceptable, this is not behavior that is accepted in the world, and that's a positive. But I think that next piece we really haven't developed of like what those norms are post, right? Of like to be emotionally connected, to be of, not just to be a dad present, but to be a dad that knows the routines, knows of like, oh, I know you like pineapple, I know you don't. I know you like this, I know that you don't. So,
totally, yes.
Yeah, that's my world of right. I can, because my wife works more, so I'm able to tell her of like, hey, this is what's going on today, and this is what he's doing, and this is what he's doing. So I can, it is that's where I feel like I personally, for myself, I don't know how you feel, but on the island, right, just kind of by myself of trying to figure out what that means to be the stay-at-home dad, what that means to connect to your kids, and how to have that deeper relationship, and not really having that guideline or that template to go to or to see, or that group, or that, I think even me and others have talked about, how women would have Tupperware parties or have the connections throughout the social years of, we stay at home together, so we connect together in the community. And there still is that, I guess, in between, just kind of a gorge in between that's not filled yet.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No,
I agree. I mean, I think, both my wife and I are therapists, and we don't even do it that well. We were always communicating and trying and whatnot. But, I think you're absolutely right. One of the first run groups that I did with Journeymen when I had dads coming together, there was a guy who basically was pushed into it from his wife, who is a friend of mine. And the wife said, I'll never forget, was like, yeah, every week me and my girlfriends go out and we have wine and we talk. And my husband's in the back porch smoking a cigar. He needs to be connected. He needs to be, have a bunch of other guys to talk to. And, I think for me, the biggest piece is connections. On so many levels, men are, systemically and systematically bullied out of having deep, loving connections as early as 2-3 years old. And so without those connections, you're absolutely right. Like we fluster, I had a client once who told me, spent 20 minutes in a session telling me how amazing of a weekend he had with his buddies in the woods, doing all the things you might imagine men do in the woods when they're with their friends. But then afterwards, he started telling me about an argument with his wife. And he said, if my wife left me, I wouldn't have anybody to tell. Mm-hmm. Right? It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's that next level. It's that next piece. And I can attest for myself and what I've heard from some other people I've worked with, that even if I go out, right, even if I played the part of, all right, I'll go out and have a beer, or I'll go play golf. I like these things, but, it's just more surface level of like, I'm going to get out and enjoy, 18 holes or go out and watch a game or something like that. But right, it's that discussion of like my world compared to their world and what's going on at home, of like it's almost that thing of you don't even want to talk about it. I've heard people say of like, I'm out of the house, like I know there's stuff I want to say, but it's almost better surface level. But if you start inquiring of like, why do you feel like it's better, and then there really is no answer, right? There's no reason. It's just the norms, and that's where I always kind of get stuck on of like, how do we break these norms? How do we move past that world of like, you can go out and you can have these connections with friends, but they don't have to be just surface level, right? How do you create those deeper friendships? And I was curious of for you were just mentioned something about the Journeymen Foundation. Can you share a little bit more about that? I was intrigued when I was reading about it, so curious to hear more and to understand more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sort of stemmed the story I just shared about the husband who said he'd have no one to tell when if his wife had left. That was a therapy client, right? And to make that story even more poignant was at that moment when he said that, someone sitting on the other side of my door in my office, this was pre-pandemic, and I knew he was there because it was always early to session. I knew that those two men, if I could just open the office door and say, you two talk, they would have significant and different need for me as a therapist, but I'm not allowed to do that in therapy. So in some ways, that was how Journeymen was born, was that I wanted to be able to connect men and act as a place where men can really and truly work to shift the story of what it is to be masculine, to be a father, to be connected. And so Journeyman was born, it was about 2018, 2019. And it was really based on a different take of what our cultural story for men is, right? A lot of your listeners, or you've heard of the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. It's a big one. It's all, I tell people, if you haven't heard of it, you have, because every Pixar movie, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, all of that, it's a great narrative, but it's basically the hero gets called or kicked out of his realm, even if it's a female hero, it's often a very masculine story, but they go to a different realm, they climb a mountain, they battle a dragon, they find treasure, and they come home and they save the universe. It's a lovely story. I wrote my dissertation on it. I spent 20 years developing into, questions and interventions using the hero's journey. And then about 18 years ago, started really looking into it and came to this idea that the hero's journey, the way it is in our culture right now, the fact that it's everywhere, is actually quite harmful to boys and men. It is a patriarchal, dominance-based story at its core in many ways. And so Journeyman was an effort to do it differently. A lot of men's work, a lot of men's coaching, a lot of programs use the hero's journey either implicitly or explicitly, saying, you're going to come and we're going to work on our shadows and do hard things, and then you're going to be better and go home. And that's lovely. What Journeyman does is I explicitly say that your greatest adventure is at home with your family. And so Journeyman, I get to, the story, the metaphor that I use is I get to host a virtual inn where men can walk in, drop their shoulders, and be real, right? And why do we go to inns or taverns or pubs? It's to connect, to share stories, to get nourished, to rest, to get some information from the weird, shady guy in the corner, right? And so Journeyman has become a space where I've developed a model that is sort of the yin to the hero's journey yang. It's a developmental-based, psychologically theory-based model using narrative therapy and adventure therapy, which are my training. And that model, that's the information that you get from the weird guy in the corner, who would be me. And then I also get to be the innkeeper, where I set up a space where men can support each other, they can share their stories, they can basically step out of their adventure, come in and go, oh man, have you heard about this? Let me tell you what happened. And they can support one another, right? So we do that through small group meetings. We do that through monthly themed presentations. We do that through some individual work that guys are open to doing. And then we also have text threads that go on throughout the month.
How
It's been
does
really wonderful.
how does someone find the Journeymen Foundation or can sign up for it? Is there a website or following?
Yeah, so
online?
it's journeymenfoundation.com.
Okay.
That's the main one, www.journeymenfoundation.com. And then I have I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. I can send you those links so that we can have them. But I at this I'm happy to say, I wish I was so huge I didn't, but I'm happy to say I'm the only one there. So if anyone reaches out to say hello, they'll get a personal response from me. I haven't automated anything yet. So if I clearly I love talking about this stuff. And so if anybody's just curious or interested, certainly would love to share some of the ideas or what we're working on. We often do open houses, things like that. We're very small, so it's great. We have the room to be flexible.
No, that's great. We'll definitely put the website and the LinkedIn and the profiles on my site as well, so they can find your information. Hopefully, you can send some messages. People will reach out to you. I was reading about it. I was learning about the mug club, and that really hit me because I am a proprietor of many mugs from different clubs. That I was like, a little club, but I was curious what was that about.
Well, as you might have picked up, I love stories. I love sort of extended metaphors. And so when I was thinking about what the Mug Club is, essentially the membership program of Journeymen. And when I was thinking about what to call it, I wanted to go with the idea of I get to be the innkeeper or the host. And at an inn, we often have, some mugs that, you come in. And so metaphorically, you join the Mug Club. You have a seat. You have a seat at the table. You're part of the membership. You walk in, and we all go, "Hey!" And everyone comes into the inn. I'm actually working on having some really sweet mugs made for the members, but we'll see where that goes. But yeah, it's basically a cute and kind of extended metaphor for the membership program that we run.
No, I love the idea. I love the concept because it definitely rings true, and it gives that, I think that third place, right? I think as we've been hearing more and more of that third place narrative. So for people that don't know of, you have your work, you have your home, and for centuries on end of, have that third place, whether it was a tavern or, for some people it can be golf, it can be bowling, it can be, it's just a league where you have a community. And definitely a mug club can make you feel like a part of a community. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that? What we hear more of that third place? Do you kind of find that to ring true with yourself and patients, or what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, it's so. I think it's really important. I mean, it's overly simplified, but your partner can't be your everything, and it's okay. I used to joke about it when my wife and I were first dating. I had a very good friend who is a woman, and I happen to really love horror movies. And my girlfriend at the time, now wife, does not at all. And so, we joked about it, but like my friend was my horror movie girlfriend, and I was able to go off and watch movies with because my girlfriend had no interest. And I mean, it's a silly example, but like you cannot, and men do this specifically, you cannot rely on your partner to be your everything. And, whether it's, like you said, golf or sports or whatever it's going to be, having a place that you go is actually good for your family. It's good for you. It's the idea that you can find solace, connection, support, accountability, all these things from other people allows you to come back to your house stronger and more connected.
And I tell others, just in this bubble here of talking about that, to try new things, right? I think that's where you learn more about yourself and you engage. And speaking for myself, even now, of trying different things. Like I just signed up to be part of a bonsai club community, right? I always love bonsai.
Very cool.
And just trying to meet new people, do new things. Put myself out there on a Sunday afternoon, and people that are experts at doing this stuff. There's different art classes, different things you try, things that you're good at, things that you're not, and find out what works for you. Because I think if it's something you've done like a long time, like being in like a golf club or a billiards membership, of try something different too, right? Learn more about yourself too. It gives you better growth and potential to meet new people and do new things and challenge yourself. Like, I didn't think I'd be good at this, but this is something I'm actually maybe good at. Maybe doing bonsai, maybe not. We'll find out in a month. We'll see. We'll have that DADennial update for everybody.
Keep me posted on that, because actually bonsai is something I've thought about doing for a very long time. So let me know how it goes.
Yeah, there's some. If you ever take a trip to Massachusetts, I can tell you some great places to go that have lots of bonsais. They're beautiful. If they already set up and they do classes and tell you how to do it. So,
sweet. Are you talking? Is one of them the Arnold Arboretum in JP?
No, but that is one.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it. It's in Acton, Massachusetts, but it has its own place, and even in the wintertime, it's beautiful in the summertime because it has a whole outdoor garden of all the bonsais out there, so you get to go walk around. But
that's cool.
Before we get too sidetracked, I was going to go back to like narrative therapy, and I've done classes in that as well, and I find that to be a good way to tell your story. Right? And I wanted to kind of get your background and opinion of how you integrate narrative therapy and what it is to your practice or the Journeymen Foundation, if you do that. I was curious about that.
Yeah. I would say narrative therapy is primarily the way I think about the world, and I was fortunate enough to find it as an actual thing. I've always been into stories. I've always been into kind of our selves as a narrative and how we interact with the world, and that's been something that I've really, even as a kid, it was somehow I linked into that. So narrative therapy I found early on in my training, early enough that it basically is the primary perspective that I look at my clients, I look at the world, I engage with, like both my wife and I are both narrative therapists, and so you should hear our arguments. Don't hold me to that old story. So I think it is involved, or it is incorporated into, I would say, everything I do with clients, with men in the Journeymen. One example, and it's something that is really at the core to narrative therapy and narrative perspective in general. But you may have heard this phrase, but a core aspect of narrative therapy is, the person is not the problem is the problem. And so inherently it separates the person from the problem, right? Someone comes into my office, plops down and goes, I'm depressed. And I say, no, John, you're not. You're John. You're dealing with depression. And that is a really interesting semantic, but it's really important, right? It's really very important. And so in the Journeymen Foundation, again, we're doing sort of a different narrative than the hero's journey. So instead of going off and battling dragons, in the metaphor that I use in the Journeyman curriculum, we are struggling with and dealing with our imps, the little buggers that like to run around and screw shit up. And instead of battling them, we're trying to understand them. We're trying to see and our issues, our problems, the obstacles, all of those things we can externalize and look at and just see what's our relationship with that right now. And 99% of the time, guys start off naming their imp and going, oh God, it's always trying to mess things up. This is a terrible pattern. But we often are able to evolve their relationship with their imps into a way where the imp can be, depending on the metaphor, a familiar, or at their counsel, or sitting at their table, or a helper or whatnot. But we can evolve our relationship with these inner patterns and inner stories by looking at them externally. And so that's a great example of narrative that we use all the time.
How do you feel storytelling overall with narrative therapy? How do you feel it can help men express like their emotions, or that they might not otherwise talk about? Like, do you find it like they're able to engage better or able to start that conversation?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think there's a couple different things. There's our own stories. And so by allowing and having the conversation with guys as to what a story is and how that works, allows us to give a form and a structure to sharing stories. And, it's a vast generalization, but lots of people I work with, lots of men like form and structure because then they can fit the answer into it, right?
Right.
But then the other piece is if we use actual stories, not within our own lives, whether they're fables or folktales or things like that, that makes it, again, it's the power of metaphor. And this idea that it's a little step away from me, which it means I don't have to stand so close to the heat of my own story. I can share it. And then you watch, a lot of what I do is in groups, and someone shares a story and they watch everyone nodding, right? So even though we're talking about something a little bit different, everyone can sort of nod in unison and go, yeah, I get that.
Right. How can fathers consciously model like that emotional intelligence, I guess, of just trying to understand, how to relay the message to their sons or daughters of, how to connect, how to, model breaking that cycle that, it's complicated, I know, but, not to say emotional intelligence, but just trying to understand of, how to connect, how to understand of not just a gender role, not just being a son or a daughter, but how to be connected, how to build that emotional intelligence, I guess. That makes better sense.
No, it absolutely does. And your question, it's really important because you say breaks the cycle. There's a couple levels. There's one with our own kids, and then there's the bigger picture of shifting men's narratives. I often say that, a connected father is an activist. If you take the time to step off the box of anger and frustration, irritation, and really get to see what's going on for you underneath, you're changing the world. And so to answer your question of how, I think it starts with some small things. The first is to understand that we have to do our own work. We have to understand what our reaction and response is, what's our backstory that informs them, and whom and how do we want to be to our kids. I mean, it involves exploring our values. It involves exploring sort of the beliefs that we have about what the role of a father is. There's no necessarily right and wrong. I mean, I have an opinion, of course, but it actually isn't about my opinion. It's about let's look at it. Let's really let's question it. Another piece of narrative, you asked earlier about narrative therapy. A fundamental element of narrative therapy is questioning taken for granted stories, right? And so even inviting fathers into, well, what does a father do? What's a father like? What is a father's job? And when we look at the answers, questioning them. Is that for real? Is that, if I ask a dad, I mean, it's sort of a joke, but if I ask a dad and say, my wife is actually the one who mows the lawn and loves the grill. What do you think about that? Right? Yeah. We both mow the lawn, but I do like the grill. Hey.
Yeah. Well, it's the changing narratives, it's the changing and being able to, right, to being open and being able to not just let yourself, and I always frame it with people in my own family of, don't let the past kind of shape the future, right? Just because it says this is how it has to be, it doesn't always have to be that way. It can be however you dream it, however you make it, make it out to be. This maybe ties into the next question of what do you hope that, modern dads will leave behind for that next generation, for your kids and your kids' kids?
Oh, that's such a great question. Because in my most idealistic thinking, I think our generation of fathers are on the cusp. We're in the liminal space between, some changes that are happening. So it's a really important question because, I have two sons. If they become fathers, they're that next generation. And so what I really hope is that as fathers in this generation and maybe the next, we can leave as a legacy that it is okay to be emotionally connected. It is okay to say, I love you. It is okay to, it's more than okay. It's actually necessary. It's absolutely, I mean, if we look at the statistics, which I won't pull out, but, men are dying earlier. Men are having, there's a higher level of substance abuse and rage and violence, all of these things because of I believe, because of narrative stories of what men are supposed to do, what fathers are supposed to do, we are dying, quite literally. And so I hope that our next generation knows how to say I love you.
I think that's a great one. I always find that, to add to it, of like that sense of community, what we've been talking about, of whether it's that third place or whether it's just being, in your neighborhood and helping out. I think the more studies that I've read and seen of what kept people going, right? What kind of had that people, how they would take care of each other when they got older, it would be that sense of community. And I think, especially in America, that we've lost much of that in our suburban neighborhoods, and how we kind of don't communicate as well with our neighbors or people in our community, that, not just say I love you and care, but just to show it too, right? And kind of be willing to put yourself out there, willing to, be vulnerable, be honest. These are all things that are, I don't know about you, but I feel are slipping backwards at certain points in time. So it's, it's almost trying to push the boulder back up the hill a little bit to get to where we want to see our kids. I have 2 boys as well, to see them thrive and feel good about themselves. Right? I think that's what I would kind of imagine in my mind of, not necessarily breaking a cycle, but just feeling good of like, I can be who I am, whatever that is, and that's okay. And whether you like grilling or whether you don't, or whether you like things that are stereotypical, and considered male activities or not, that's up to you. It's not just programmed in your brain. But if you could give a piece of advice to a new dad, what would that be?
Wow, that's a great question. I don't have just one. Let me just think for a second.
It could be more than one.
I'm just thinking. I think probably because we were just talking about it. I think that the first thing I could think about is, maintain your connections. I'd have to give the caveat: maintain your connections while communicating with your partner, so you're not just leaving, and doing that. But so I think actually to put that together, I think the piece of advice that I would give is maintain connections while increasing and improving your communication with your partner. I mean, I could probably think about 35 more things, but I think that's at the core. We want to be intentional. We want to, small, consistent, repetitive things make the most difference over time. So if you know how to, communicate with your partner really well, you can build those things. If you know how to stay in touch with friends and make time for that, you will continue that, right? Those kind of things. My family gets teased that we make a tradition out of everything.
Yeah.
And I hold steadfast to that. I have said the same 12 words to both of my kids at bedtime, essentially without fail, for every day of their life, and they're 17 and 14.
Can you share what those words are or no?
Yeah, of course. I mean, and it's funny because I say it, and my boys are teenagers, and I say it to them, they say it to me, and I say, I love you for always and forever. You're my sweet one. And it's wonderful, and it's funny. Like, I had a friend once, a male friend, said, they're getting to be teenagers. You still want to talk like that with them? And I said, more than ever. More than ever.
Yeah, now when they need it as a teenager, to hear that through all these difficult changes going on in their minds and their bodies, that you have, no matter what, here's dad and here's mom that love you and care for you and support you.
Gotcha.
Right. That makes a big difference. I think what you were just saying too of that ring true, because I feel like I've had a few sessions or talks lately of being that able to find time, right? Everybody always say we're too busy or we can't find time. Keeping those connections going, right? Especially as kids grow up and more things get put on your plate of how do I connect with that old friend from high school or college or 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It does become more challenging, and I always kind of hear more of that of like, I'd like to connect with them, but I don't know how. Like, I haven't talked to them in a while. Like, it's almost like a passive thing of I'll catch up with them when I can, but like when but when can you? You can now. You can just send a message. You can keep it going, It might feel like a one-way street maybe, but it's something, right? It makes you feel good. It makes you feel, the ability to connect. And that's what, small manageable goals. That's always my thing too. Hearing what you talk about pops up some of my mantras too. But yeah, just finding things that are small, manageable, things you can do, things that are simple. Just little words like that to your kids make the world a difference. And I think together, by putting all these little pieces together we've been talking about, this is that new template. That's why I do what I do when you do the Journeymen Foundation, to try to create that new ideal, that new template for being open, being honest, being communicative, being able to, reach the next generation to figure what fatherhood looks like in the 21st century and going forward.
Can I add just one thing real quick?
Yeah.
As you were saying that, it just made me think about it, is the other piece of advice that I think is really challenging for, especially in our culture today, but it's one of the reasons I love working with fathers, is when you work with, as a dad, you're automatically, so again, why journey is a big part of my metaphor, is fatherhood is a journey. Like, it is long term. It is like, I'm going to be your dad for the rest of your life. So now I have to think long term. And I always would invite dads, like your question about a first-time dad or a new dad, is to start thinking long-term for the rest of their lives as well, right? So not just in my parenting, but with my friendships and with my activities and with, so I have a group of very great long-term core friends who maybe I see twice a year. But by this point, I don't know how old you are, I'm 52. I've been hanging out with them for 3, 4, 5 days at a time, once or twice a year, for 35 years. And we don't really see each other outside of that, but it's one of those things where it's like, if you're my friend and we go 6 months without talking, okay, but I'm aware that I plan on being very old and you're still my friend, right? Like, we are, like, I can think in terms of long term in a way that I didn't used to as a young man. But because all of a sudden I've been thrust into fatherhood, not really all of a sudden, but because I've been put into fatherhood, I'm thinking, wow, I have lifetime of things. So I'm going to be a little more patient with myself. I'm going to think in terms of, rhythms in our year and our lives and all of those things. And that's really where you can then rest and change the narrative of, oh, I haven't seen you in a while, but oh, here comes, I just got back from a trip with those guys and it was wonderful. It was fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, you say maybe for you, it's not necessarily thrust into fatherhood. It's more of that wanting to be that dad, right? I mean, you had that dad figure for yourself, but you want to not just resemble that, but even grow upon it. It sounds like so. Yeah,
yes.
People can be thrust into fatherhood, but it's it's how much you engage into it and put yourself out there and put yourself into modern day fatherhood, right? Breaking that cycle of being that person that maybe you wish you had or you want to be. Kind of piggyback on what, looking forward, I'm curious now of what kind of story do you feel like your kids would have about you someday?
I think the easiest one to say is they will talk about my cooking. I cook probably 98% of the meals in my house. And I think they'll probably say that I was there. I hope that's what they'd say, is that I was there. I was connected. I made time for them. And that I made mistakes and was okay with it. I was willing, the joke that I often say is my youngest son, who now does it with a twinkle in his eye, but has meant it for a long time, was if I get irritable or, like snarky with him, or if I'm not at my best, which, happens, right, he will look at me dead in the eye and say, would you tell one of the journeymen to talk to their kids that way? And I have to say, no, you're right, and I'm sorry. And while I love it and it's a great story, I think it's so important because he would only feel safe enough to do that if we have created the foundation for him to feel safe enough to do that. And so in terms of what will my kids say is, I think I would hope that that's with insight. I would hope they would know that they would see that my dad wasn't perfect, but he was always trying, and it was okay for me to point that out to him.
I love it. Yeah, that's similar to how I feel too, of being open, being honest, being real, raw sometimes, but being a parent, being loving, showing them how to be your genuine, best version of yourself kind of mentality.
Absolutely.
So we like to wrap up with doing kind of a rapid fire round of questions here. So first, in the psychology world, as you know, right, the first thing that pops in your mind is usually the best answer. So the first one is, what's one dad superpower you wish you had?
Two places at the same time. If I could split myself at some point.
So we do one every interview of, what's your guilty pleasure snack?
Oh, pizza.
Any particular kind? Is it like Hawaiian or pepperoni or some crazy toppings?
Oh, we want to bring that up. No, I'm an equal. I'm originally from New York, so I'm an equal opportunity pizza eater. It's a doubly guilty snack because right now, health-wise, I should not be having gluten. But my son works at a pizza shop and brings a lot.
That's the dream.
Yeah, I know.
Is there a movie or show that captures fatherhood for better or worse for you? What pops in your mind?
Oh, wow. Gosh, the first thing that comes to mind. Can I answer men and masculinity? Because I know that one. The first thing that comes to mind for that is, and because I've dorked out about it a lot, is the Loki, the season 1 and 2 of Loki from the MCU. I think that Loki is that character's development is a wonderful tale of masculinity and different shifts of masculinity. And we could dork out about that some other time if you'd like.
Yeah. Definitely. If you could give every dad in the world one sentence of wisdom, what would it be?
Sit down with your kids and do the activity that you think you don't like. Whether it's you don't want to play video games with them, whether it's whatever it is, listen to their music, get on Snapchat, or whatever it is, do the thing that they are doing that you don't like or don't think you like. Just to see, just to try it out.
Yeah. Try it out. When I hear that, I think of time is precious, right? You only have a certain number of minutes and days, and you don't know when that last time you'll do it is. So I always think of that. I would think of, you're connecting with them, right? Even if it's something you may not like or what you want to do, if you're building a connection, you're building a rapport, you're showing them too that just because something you don't like, you're still willing to give it a try. So that helps them too with friends and family and people in the future that they engage with. But, well, thank you very much, Dr. John Frishman, PhD, psychologist.
No doctor. Just the insurance companies call me doctor.
Fair enough. Jason Frishman, licensed PhD, will put men's coaching, fathers, the Journeymen Foundation. Please go online to journeymenfoundation.com. LinkedIn, you can find them. We'll post it all on DADennial website as well. So appreciate your time. Appreciate you answering all my silly questions and good questions and everything in between. So appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Jason.
Absolutely. Thank you. By the way, Mike or Michael, what do you prefer?
Mike's fine. Only Michael. It goes. My mother will say that to me, but
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, I'm really glad to have touched base with you for sure.
I just wanted to thank Jason Frishman again. Once again, he's a licensed PhD. He does men's coaching with fathers. He's part of the Journeymen Foundation, so please go to journeymenfoundation.com. We will have the link on the YouTube channel as well for DADennial. Also, please go to DADennial.com. Check out the merchandise there. The usual YouTube thing of like it, subscribe it. We love seeing the views. I love seeing comments, other suggestions and ideas. Please leave those behind as well. I appreciate everyone that has viewed this video and other videos that we've done so far. We have more to come. So please like, subscribe, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't. Thank you again for watching, listening, however you consume this product. Thank you. Talk again soon.